Here's something most people get wrong about the impulse buying. It's not a character flaw. It's not laziness. It's not a lack of discipline. The people who blow their budget on things they didn't plan to buy aren't weaker than everyone else. They're just unaware of what's actually happening inside their brain when they shop. And once you understand it, you can't unsee it. Let's start with a question. When was the last time you bought something on impulse and then felt a little strange about it afterward? Not guilty exactly, just puzzled. Like a part of you made a decision without consulting the rest of you. That feeling is real, and it points to something fundamental about how human decision-making actually works. Your brain doesn't run on a single operating system. It runs on two. One is slow, deliberate, and rational. The part of you that compares prices, reads reviews, and thinks about whether something fits into your budget. The other is fast, automatic, and emotional. The part that reacts before the rational side even gets a chance to load. Behavioral economists call these System 1 and System 2. And when it comes to shopping, System 1 almost always fires first. This fast system evolved to help you survive. It makes quick judgments, responds to visual cues, and prioritizes immediate reward over future benefit. It's the reason humans made it this far. But it was built for a world of predators and food scarcity, not Amazon Prime and one-click checkout. In a modern retail environment, that ancient survival wiring becomes a liability. Now here's where it gets interesting. You might assume that the reward your brain chases is the thing you're buying, the jacket, the gadget, the meal. But that's not quite right. Research into dopamine, the neurotransmitter most associated with pleasure and motivation, shows something surprising. Dopamine spikes hardest during anticipation, not possession. It's the chase, not the catch. The moment you see something you want and start imagining owning it, your brain floods with dopamine. The moment you actually have it, that flood subsides, sometimes almost immediately. This is why online shopping carts feel satisfying to fill even when you don't complete the purchase. It's why browsing can feel like a mild high. Your brain is getting its chemical reward from the possibility of aiming something, and that reward fades the second the transaction is done. What you're really addicted to, if we're being precise about it, is the feeling of wanting, not the feeling of having. 3 specific triggers accelerate this process faster than almost anything else. The first is novelty. Your brain is hardwired to pay attention to new things, a new product, a new style, a new version of something you already own. Novelty hijacks attention and signals potential reward, even when none exists. The second is scarcity. Phrases like, only 3 left, or offer ends tonight, activate a deeply primal fear of missing out. Scarcity makes your brain treat an optional purchase like an urgent problem that needs solving right now before your rational mind catches up. The third is convenience. The easier a purchase is to complete, the less time your deliberate thinking system has to intervene. One-click buying, saved card details, express checkout. These aren't just user experience improvements. They're friction removal tools designed to keep you in System 1 long enough to spend, and this is where it connects to something bigger than just a single purchase. Impulse buying isn't really about money. It's about emotion. You don't just buy things because they're shiny or cheap or on sale. You buy them because in that specific moment, The purchase promises something: relief from boredom, a small hit of excitement, a sense of control when life feels chaotic, or the illusion of a slightly better version of yourself. The transaction feels like a solution. For about 45 seconds, it is won. The problem is that your long-term financial goals operate on a completely different timescale than your emotional state in any given moment. Saving for freedom, paying off debt, building security, these things don't produce dopamine on demand. They're slow, invisible, and abstract. Impulse buying is fast, visible, and concrete. Your brain will almost always favor the concrete and immediate over the abstract and distant, unless you intervene deliberately. So if impulse buying isn't about willpower, and if your brain is genuinely wired to make these fast, emotionally driven decisions, then trying harder isn't the answer. Shaming yourself isn't the answer. The answer is understanding the game you're playing. And here's the thing. You're not just playing against your own biology. You're playing against teams of engineers, designers, and psychologists who have spent billions of dollars learning exactly how to exploit every one of these patterns. Your environment isn't neutral. It's been carefully constructed to pull your trigger before your rational brain even realizes it's in the room. That's what we're going to look at next. So let's talk about what that environment actually looks like, because it's more precise than most people realize. The retail industry doesn't just hope you'll buy something. It engineers the conditions under which buying feels like the obvious, natural, almost effortless thing to do. And the primary tool they use isn't advertising. It's friction removal. The goal is to shrink the distance between the moment you feel desire and the moment money leaves your account. Every second of pause is a risk. Every extra click is an opportunity for your system to wake up and ask whether you actually need this. So they eliminate the seconds. They eliminate the clicks, one-tap checkout, biometric payment, preloaded card details, auto-filled addresses. All of it is infrastructure built to keep you inside the fast, emotional brain for as long as possible, right through the point of no return. And layered on top of that frictionless design are some of the most psychologically sophisticated tactics ever developed for commercial use. Take limited time offers. When a countdown timer appears on a product page, something shifts in your brain. It's not just urgency, it's manufactured scarcity, which activates loss aversion, one of the most powerful forces in behavioral economics. Losing something hurts roughly twice as much as gaining the same thing feels good. So when you see offer ends in 47 minutes, your brain doesn't frame this as an opportunity. It frames it as a potential loss, and people will make objectively irrational decisions to avoid a loss. That's not a weakness, it's neuroscience, and retailers know exactly how to use it. Then there's anchor pricing. You see a jacket listed at $400, marked down to $180. The $400 is there not because the jacket was ever really worth $400, but because it reframes $180 as a deal. Your reference point has been set. You're no longer evaluating whether you need a jacket or whether $180 is within your budget. You're evaluating how much you're saving. The anchor does the work before you even process the actual price. Decoy pricing operates on the same principle. When a subscription service offers you a basic plan, a premium plan, and a deluxe plan, Often the middle option was designed specifically to make the premium option feel reasonable by comparison. The decoy isn't meant to be chosen. It's meant to make a different choice feel like common sense. And then there are cart prompts, the customers also bought section, the you might like sidebar, the add this for free shipping nudge when you're $12 away from a threshold. These aren't helpful suggestions. They're conversion tools. Behavioral data shows that people spend significantly more when these prompts are present, not because they needed the items, but because the prompt arrived at precisely the right moment of lowered resistance after they'd already mentally committed to spending. But here's where it gets more personal. Digital advertising has moved far beyond generic targeting. Algorithms now catch you in specific emotional windows, late at night when you're exhausted, mid-afternoon when you're restless, immediately after a stressful event that your phone inferred from your behavior patterns. The ads that find you at those moments aren't random. They're served to you because data suggests you're more likely to convert when your defenses are down. Your emotional state has become a product that gets sold back to you in the form of perfectly timed temptation. Which brings us to something that doesn't get talked about enough, because it's less comfortable than blaming retailers. Emotional spending. A lot of impulse buying isn't manipulation from the outside. It's self-medication from the inside. When you're stressed, your brain seeks relief, and it seeks it fast. When you're bored, it seeks stimulation. When you're lonely, it reaches for something that signals belonging or identity. When you feel uncertain about who you are or where you're headed, buying something new can feel like a small act of self-definition. I bought this, therefore I am this. Shopping functions as emotional coping in a way that feels productive and even virtuous. You did something. You got something. There's a tangible outcome. For a brief moment, a nagging, formless discomfort becomes a solved problem with a tracking number. Retail therapy isn't a joke. It's a real neurological response, a short circuit that routes emotional pain through a commercial transaction and delivers enough dopamine to quiet the signals temporarily. The regret comes later, and often quietly. Not explosive guilt, just a low-level sense that you were somewhere else for a moment and came back to find your bank balance a little lighter and your actual problem exactly where you left it. This is the part that makes impulse buying so persistent. The external tactics make you spend, but the internal emotional patterns are what make you keep coming back. Retailers can build the trap, but something in you helps spring it. And that distinction matters because external environments can only be partially controlled. But your internal patterns, those you can actually work with, that's where we're going next. So if impulse buying is a loop, external triggers meeting internal emotion, all running through a brain that moves faster than your judgment, then stopping it isn't about trying harder. It's about interrupting the loop at specific points. Here are 4 techniques that actually work and why they work behaviorally. The first is the mandatory pause. Pick a rule and commit to it before you need it. Nothing unplanned gets purchased for 24 hours. For bigger amounts, make it 48. This sounds almost insultingly simple, but the mechanism behind it is precise. What you're doing is forcing the decision out of System 1, the fast, emotional, impulsive brain, and handing it to System 2, the slow, deliberate, evaluative brain. The moment you say, "I'll decide tomorrow," the urgency dissolves. That countdown timer loses its grip. The manufactured scarcity that felt like a crisis becomes just a number on a screen. Most of the time, when you return to the item the next day, the feeling is already different. Not gone, maybe, but different, quieter, easier to question. And that question is the entire point. The pause doesn't tell you not to buy. It just makes sure a conscious mind is the one making the call. The second technique is removing triggers before they find you. The pause works when you're already in the moment of temptation. This one works before you get there. Delete saved payment information from retail sites. The extra step of entering your card number adds friction, and friction is your ally because the whole system was built to eliminate it. Unfollow accounts that function as shopping queues. If a certain creator makes you feel like you're missing something you need to acquire, that's not inspiration, that's a trigger. Audit your email subscriptions and cut promotional emails at the source. Every flash sale notification is a scheduled hit of artificial urgency landing directly in your pocket. When you reduce the number of times the loop starts, you reduce the number of times you have to fight it. You're not relying on discipline in the moment. You're redesigning the environment so the moment comes up less often. The third technique is the most psychologically important one. Name the emotion before you buy. Before you click, before you add to cart, pause and ask yourself a single question. What am I actually feeling right now? Not, do I want this? You already know you want it. The real question is whether wanting it is about the product or about something else. Boredom, stress, loneliness, the low-grade restlessness that comes from a long day or a hard week. Because if the real need is emotional, buying something won't meet it. It will mute it for 20 minutes and leave it waiting. Once you identify the actual feeling, you can route it somewhere specific. Stressed? There's a walk, a conversation, a breathing practice. Bored? There's a book, a project, a person you've been meaning to call. You're not suppressing the emotion. You're refusing to let a purchase stand in for a response that would actually help. This takes practice, but even doing it occasionally starts to break the automatic link between discomfort and spending. The fourth technique is the values filter. Before any significant, unplanned purchase, ask one question. Does this serve something I actually care about? Not something you vaguely want. Not something the algorithm decided you should want. Something that reflects a real priority in your actual life. This question works because it shifts the frame. You're no longer evaluating the product. You're evaluating the alignment between this decision and the person you're trying to become. Most impulse purchases fail this filter immediately, not because they're bad things to own, but because they have nothing to do with where you're genuinely trying to go. The filter doesn't moralize. It just asks whether you're spending intentionally or reactively. And that distinction, repeated over time, is the difference between a financial life that reflects your values and one that reflects someone else's engineering. Here's the reframe that ties all four together. Stopping impulse buying isn't about cultivating more willpower. Willpower is a limited resource, and the entire retail environment is designed to exhaust it. What actually works is designing your environment so willpower is rarely required, and building a self-conception where reactive spending just doesn't fit. Not because you're depriving yourself, but because you've decided that what you're building matters more than what you're buying. The core lesson of everything we've covered is this: impulse buying is predictable psychology. It's not a character flaw. It's not a discipline problem. It's a brain doing exactly what it was shaped to do inside a commercial environment that was purpose-built to exploit those tendencies. When you understand the mechanism, you stop blaming yourself for falling for it, and you start building systems that change the conditions. The mind shifts that actually move the needle. The pause is power. Friction is a feature. Emotion is information, not a purchase signal. And your spending should be a reflection of your priorities, not a reaction to someone else's strategy. If this kind of thinking is useful to you, subscribe. There's a lot more where this came from.